Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today we have a new guest, my batchmate, Sahil Singh from Symbiosis Law School, Pune. So who is not only pursuing an LLM, but is also recognized as an able researcher contributing to a lot many projects in college in collaboration with faculties. So many students struggle with like two key legal aspects of legal academia, like first navigating the LLM journey itself, so choosing a specialization, managing coursework, managing network out there when you join the college, right? How to cope with everyone being a CR and otherwise, right? How, like, if you are not CRs, how to deal with them, right? So and making your deal done, and also like making the most of the opportunities that are present there, right? And second, like understanding how to approach legal research, because when we talk about or deal with LLM, we have this figure that as a we do it for the to enhance my research skills, to enhance our research skills, right? So like how to select a research topic and end up writing a compelling paper, right? So in this episode we will cover both the experience of pursuing an LLM at Symbiosis and the secrets to becoming a strong legal researcher like Sahil is. So if you are planning to do an LLM or want to improve your research skills, this discussion is for you. So let's get started. So Sahil will introduce himself first and then we will proceed ahead. So Sahil, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. So I'm from Symbiosis Law School, Pune, and like Harsh has rightly remarked, and he's given a very vivid explanation of everything. So one thing we have to understand that, see, your 5 year course is also an important course, but that
Correct.
doesn't mean it determines anything. It's all your value addition which you do. Like when I was in a 5 year course from modern, so in that also I've learned one aspect that even though you have certain lack of facilities which are not there in each aspect, so what do we do is we train ourselves, we do up from our own selves. Anything which you have to do, your legal research, your understanding shall be from within your own self. That is one key aspect which I have realized. Now, what is one aspect of LLM which is very important? It's a value addition course, as Harsh has already mentioned, and he's given us already a vivid explanation of exactly what this session is going to cover and exactly how will we be proceeding with things. So LLM is, we would say, is one of the most important aspect. And from Symbiosis point of view, we could say it is something in which it's a rigorous training program which will give us an entire overview to which we have to cover an entire 2 years LLM program and a 1 year LLM program. But that doesn't mean that if you are from any college or from any university,
So
you
Sahil,
cannot cope with the
just a
pressure.
minute. So I just wanted you to introduce yourself because I have certain questions for you, which will be I will be asking all the questions. So you just
Okay, fine, no problem.
yeah. So you have
Okay, fine.
just
So
yeah.
I'm a LLM student from Symbiosis Law School, Pune. And like Harsha rightly remarked, I'm also the CR of Business and Corporate Law. I'm also a part of the student teams of Scalza, and also I'm a part of the student team of Spark as well. I like to team up with the teachers for various academic projects. Even recently, right now, I'm also publishing in the Bricks Journal.
Correct. So basically, before proceeding further, I would like to know that we have divided this video into four segments, and let's start with the first segment. So first segment is the LLM experience at Symbiosis. So what motivated you to pursue an LLM, and why did you choose Symbiosis Law School Pune? So this is the first question I'm going to ask. Yeah, please.
Yeah, so one of the most important aspects is that Symbiosis is an international recognized university. And also, there's nothing wrong in which a 5 year course we have learned from our colleges, which have actually given us the framework to proceed ahead in life. But there was one certain challenge which we wanted to do is either you want to progress in academia, or either you want to progress in a certain way in which you want to become a specialization or an expert in that particular subject. The experience here is quite vivid, in which initially they start very slowly, in which they make you assimilated to all the pressure and the situation at hand. But ultimately, when the course proceeds, you'll understand the immense pressure which you have to do. Regularly, you'll have to do research papers, research conducting, you'll have to do, as we have experienced, we had to do 4 research papers in the research method itself. There are three core subjects which we have to do. You've got a legal research, you've got globalization and comparative public law. And also, since I'm a specialization of business and corporate law, we had to take two specializations from our main course. So that I had taken was international trade law and comparative corporate law. So what is my experience from this is that they train us really well. The faculty is well advanced, in which they teach you each aspect. And one aspect which we would like to say is learn, then you unlearn, and you relearn what you have to do. So
Correct.
these are the three facets which has actually taught me that to progress ahead is you need to be consistent. Second is here what you notice that once you lag behind, you'll be lagging behind overall. Also, there's a system known as the bell curve system, but no one should get so worried about it. Ultimately, what you should do is don't compete with your peers. compete with yourself, do your level best, and once you perform adequately, you will see the results overall. So I would say it's a complicated course, but it's not impossible. You just have to put your mind, spirits, and commitment to the subject.
So perfect way to start with this video. So basically, from this discussion, I have came to realize certain points. So basically, like when I also joined there, so there were a few students. They were like discussing why there are these core subjects. What is the use of it? Because we have chosen certain specializations. So like they were like subjects only we taught which are like important for our domain, right? So what is the use of core subjects like which are not specialization based? So what is your take on that?
So it's important that see core subjects will actually teach us exactly what exactly we have to do. Even I had the same opinion. I've come here for business and corporate law. Why
Correct.
do I have to learn legal research, comparative public law, and other aspects? But later, once you realize is globalization is a vast variety in which you don't understand what is happening in the globe. What are the theories, the diachronic theory, Pogg's theory, then how Karl Marx and how the entire globe is functioning, you'll not be able to understand exactly what is happening in your specialization first. Second, it trains you mentally that you have to go into a next level performance and to reach an optimum standard, which will help us not just only to perform in this aspect, but also to train us for practical, applicable, and future aspects as well. Also, there's an aspect in which they have focused on a concept of research method. Why? Is because later when we realize that why legal research was important and how we have to frame an abstract, and they have taught us research proposal. Why they have done this is because we have to write, as Harsh rightly knows, we have to write a dissertation of 80 to 120 pages, and also we have to write various assignments. So if we don't know what is legal research, we don't know what is training, and if we don't know how to use any databases, it'll become a quite of a hectic task. That is one aspect. Comparative public law, why they got it is because the BCI mandates and the university itself mandates by 2030 regulation that you either combine two courses of constitution law or you mix public law and constitution law as one. That's why we have that course, and it gives us, even people who are not from constitution law, a background of what is happening in the nation and exactly what is the solution which you can bring or propagate to.
So basically, you're trying to say that it is important for overall development of a student because it helps one develop the base firstly, and then then like first you understand the core subject because it is for everybody. For example, there are 90 students, let's say in Symbiosis, right? So in each specialization, there are let's say 8 students, 10 students. So for the first semester, you are getting the core subject, so you are able to cope up with everybody in that way. When you are having the core subject, it is for everybody, all 90 students, right? So you are able to understand each other's perspective, and then you are like taught other specialization based subjects, so that it helps you build more into your perspective, right? In which area you are having your specialization, correct?
Yeah, that is one of the most important aspect. And like we noticed that, see, there'll be some people who will not have much confidence, or there'll be some people who are just trying to develop themselves. Even people who have not done legal research, they'll be compelled into going out of the comfort zone and trying. Even when I started in July, when I started using a database, I had a lot of struggle actually. I was unable to use a database. I was unable to understand, ki, okay, this is a different pattern from which I was actually conducting a research, in which the literature review or some other aspect. And these concepts we didn't know. But ultimately, once you concentrate and you work effectively, this will help us to move forward, because in every subject legal research is one of the most important aspects. Like even globalization, like Harsh, we had to do a assignment. We had to, from our specialization, we had to choose an assignment, but it related to legal research and related to globalization. So the way they have panned out the syllabus and the way they have structured it is the one of the most important aspect, which actually sets the boundaries and the frameworks for the next semester, which is also a very vital aspect for an LLM to reach academia as well as to reach your goal. And one more important aspect which I've realized is key in legal research, when you had semester two, the most frightening aspect was we had to do demo teaching. But
Correct.
ultimately, after we taught the demo teaching, like I had given for 1 hour 45 minutes on, I had given on a certain aspect of company law, in which I had taught the entire thing, and later the teachers and the students themselves appreciated it. Ki, how have you taught this acknowledgement, or the way you have taught the shares, the procedure, the well-being? You'll be like, first you'll be scared. Ki, yes, I'll not be able to do it. But once you start, you have to start somewhere. Once you start somewhere, then you'll know what is the success which you'll be achieving in life.
So this is quite motivating for all of us, all of 89 other students who are listening to you. So they will definitely get boost up after listening this video, I am sure, and others as well, those who will watch on YouTube, right? So let's start with another question. So this you have already answered, but you can just summarize in 1 minute, right? So how has the academic environment and faculty helped shape your learning experience at Symbiosis?
Yeah, so this is one of the most important question key that academics has given us various aspects in which they want us to move ahead and not just compete with the peers but compete with ourselves and progress. Also what I've realized is key when you go to a teacher and approach them, they are ready to help you. It's like when you put in the effort, the teacher is ready to put 2x effort. Like when I went in December also for research projects and every aspect, they literally restructured the way I was writing an abstract, the way I'm doing a literature review, and motivate me, not demotivate me, and tell me yes, even if there is a rejection of a certain paper, no harm, you can modify, you can do certain changes, and this will help you to improve. And that is exactly what the director does. And this even I've learned from my other college. Modern has also taught us aspect in which we have to go with a flow and you have to focus accordingly in life. It doesn't matter, you just work consistently with effort, you will see the results.
So basically, you are saying that you need to first start, and then
You have
you
to
need
just
to be,
start.
yeah, then you need to be consistent on it, and results will eventually fall on it, right?
Yeah, also a certain aspect is that once you start a legal research paper also, you'll notice that the first 600 words takes 1 hour, which becomes quite cumbersome. But later, what I suggest is you just keep on writing, keep on collecting data, keep on getting the literature review, keep on expanding your knowledge. Once you do that, you yourself will be able to progress effectively and you'll be able to type also meticulously and get your solution which you want and get the gaps identified, get each and every solution given in a specific manner.
So that brings us to segment two, which is getting started with legal research. So the question is like many students find research intimidating, right? So like how would you suggest someone start if they have no prior experience?
Yeah, so one systematic approach which you do have to follow is if you don't have a legal experience or first research, scientific systematic inquiry, what you do is you delve into the aspect in which you start searching to a certain level, you develop your knowledge, and once you develop that knowledge, then you move forward. So if I'm searching a certain topic, like I was searching on environment social governance, first I'll read what is environment social governance. What is the concept of this? Do we have a legislation? Is it interesting for me? Once I do that, once you get an interest in the subject, you'll go further into it and you'll be like, this is the topic I identified. Let's say it is a narrow scope. It's a general topic I've taken. Now I have to take a if it I have to narrow it down to a very small title, the topic, or very systematic overview. Once you narrow it down, then you'll be able to further do your research. That is one of the key aspects. And people who are intimidated by research is once you start. Ultimately, once you start anything, initially it's going to be very difficult. And main mantra is not to compete with the peers. The day you start competing with the peers, you'll realize that is the day you start lagging behind. Instead, start competing with yourself. Start seeing the drawbacks in yourself. Don't try to change anyone, just try to change yourself.
Perfect. So basically, you are trying to say that let's say if something you don't have interest in, so develop an interest, right? First, because
Correct.
times you
Yes.
don't choose a topic, you get a topic to write upon, right? In that case, you don't have any other option, but you have to go thorough with the topic. You need to understand the crux of it. Then you can start writing, right?
Yeah, that is one of the most important aspect. And like how you have summarized whatever I said in 2 lines, that is really good.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that.
So like now the next question is like how do you go about selecting a research topic? Like what factors should a student keep in mind?
Yeah, so one of the most important aspect is ki first we frame a title in our mind. Now, if I'm doing on ESG, like my dissertation topic, I'll give that only example. Ki exactly what I felt was ESG, India does not have an ESG topic. I need to create something new. So let's try to create something new, but we are not PhD students to create something new, but we have to create something innovative and creative. So what I did is I like, what if we converge ESG and CSR, merge these two in corporate governance? No one has this as of now. Late beginning when I had framed the title, I was confused. ESG, CSR, I'm not able to frame the title properly. So I just kept a rough title in my mind ki I'll be focusing on these two title topics, ESG, CSR, and I'll leave it. Then I start seeing the previous literature. Literature review is one of the most important aspects. Once you see the previous literature, once you have an idea ki what exactly the authors have stated, because and one more thing, remember, peer review articles are good. They're nice. There's nothing wrong with it. But you should see what those academic literature scholars have also said. Because peer review mostly will be you and me. We are writing, unless we are PhD experts. So you have to choose your literature from those people who have written something outside or they are academia. And also remember one aspect: when you are searching a topic, you remember you'll never find your topic directly. You'll have to find the keywords. Like when I was searching my topic, I first found ESG. Then I like, okay, ESG I search. Then corporate governance. Okay, then CSR. Then I realized with all of this, I combined this, and that is when I narrowed my title. I made my title from a wider aspect of a big corporate law to a small aspect of just convergence, ESG, CSR, future of corporate governance, a critical analysis. Why a critical analysis? Because I'll be doing a study and how I'll be doing this. So now let's progress into the next aspect, which I'll be explaining about an abstract.
So basically, what you are trying to say is that, so you, let's say you pick up certain keyword, right? And you start building your knowledge on that particular keyword. And then while building your knowledge, you get to know certain other aspects of that particular keyword, right? And then how you
Correct.
connect in, like you then this is how you interconnect two terms, right? You will find another keyword, and this is how you build on a certain topic, and this is how you identify a topic, right?
Yes, don't go on Google and search it. Like we know we are blessed in some voices and other institutions in which we do have a database to do it. But sometimes what happens is like I do not have a database initially. So what we do is obviously we search on Google. But remember, there's a site of SSRN which is also there. And when you keep on searching, fine, I understand that not everyone will have a database. In some voices, we are blessed to have the database is a different thing. Other colleges
Correct.
also might have.
Obvious.
So if in that case you don't have, then what you do is you search on Google, you search scholarship articles, you search relevant articles, you search open review articles, because most of the articles which you search, which even we are searching in our database, will be open review, which are closed. We have to pay an APC, article processing charge. So for that, anyways, you cannot view. So what you have to do is maybe database is more systemized for us, but when you search on Google also, you'll get your results. But remember one thing, you have to focus on something known as gap of literature. What is the gap are you identifying? Don't just add to existing literature. Existing literature, everyone has a knowledge. We want to see what is additional you are going to be progressing and how are you going to be inculcating and giving us a final solution with a suggestive measure.
So that brings us to segment 3 of this video, which is conducting and structuring research, right? After identifying the topic. So once you have a topic, like what are the best ways to find credible sources and organize research materially effectively?
Yeah. So one most important aspect is first I start with abstract. But then when I write abstract, I leave the entire page blank. Now you'll ask me why I leave the entire page blank.
Correct.
Then I start with introduction. Why we start directly with introduction and leave the abstract blank? Abstract is best to give an overview to a person that this is exactly the starting point. This is what we'll be conducting the research. This is what's happening in the previous literature review, and how this you like. I'll explain later what is doctrinal, exploratory, qualitative, quantitative, empirical research. How these gaps will be identified in our literature, and lastly, what will the researcher gain and how this will help the academia. So let's start with introduction. Introduction should give your own analysis once you read with the literature, how I'll be explaining now. What you should do is remember one thing: when you cluster things up, you will make a cluster of your own brain. That's what I used to initially do. Then I realized, why don't I create a folder? Let's say if I'm making a folder on environment, social governments, again, I'll write environment, social governments in the folder. Everything which I download, I'll put it in the folder. Why? Because later, I will not be working on the entire research project today. I'll be working on a small parcel today. So that means a certain aspect I will keep. But if I cluster everything or if I mess up anything, it'll become detrimental for me in the long run. So I go and systemize it. So, okay, environment, social governments. So in that, I got a concept. Okay, taxonomy. What is taxonomy? Risk-based classification system. Okay, taxonomy I'll add. Then what is the aspect? Okay, do we have this legislation? No, we don't have this legislation. Could I bring this legislation? I'll have to focus on CSR. Main important thing. Okay, after doing all of this, I realized key shareholder activism. How can I get this? I've realized key after doing ESG, I realized key then you have a stinking, you put a thinking cap on. Without this, how would I do it if there is no shareholder activist? Okay, so I have to go to shareholder activist. So you start with introduction, then you'll go into shareholder activist, and you'll realize, okay, from shareholder activist, I need to see the history, exactly how it framed, the scams, the various aspects. And once you start moving into a group, you'll get a momentum, and then directly you'll start typing on your own. You'll see the magic in which after 600 words you write in 1 hour. The next 2-3 hours you'll already reach 3,000. But ultimately, what you have to do is don't give up, keep on going in a structured manner. Like now we'll tell you introduction, then you go to body of content. Body of the content will include exactly whatever I'll be doing, the subheadings, the subtitles, everything which I'll be mentioning. Remember one thing: the more systematic clarity it is, it will become very important. So I start with introduction, then I go lower, 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 and then I write a certain aspect. Let's say if I'm doing shareholder activism, ESG, CSR, my first title will be shareholder activism. But I realize that shareholder activism everyone will be doing. So why don't I frame a topic of green shareholder activism with ESG and this? Create something which is creative. Once you create something creative, then you'll understand. The next part I'll explain in a bit. Let Harsh, over to you, Harsh.
So basically, like, my first question is, why do a lot of students struggle like transitioning from research to writing? So one can be a good researcher, but can one also be a good writer? So there has to be a debate, I guess, which is missing in this legal academia at this moment. So like, what's your approach to structuring a research paper? Like, first step is you do your research. You have done your research. Now, how to like structure your research and write it? Because whatever you have
Okay.
researched, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. So like I've already explained you the introduction. Then I've told you abstract first. Then we go into introduction. Then we go into body of contents. Now, body of the contents. This was my first main chapterization for my mind, in which I write the section one. ESD. I write what shareholder activism, green shareholder activism, chapter one. Then whatever the niche contents, all the below contents which I'll be getting about what was green shareholder activism, the history and all will come below that. Then after collecting that, I will think now I have to somehow structure this going into the next aspect. So my next aspect would be, let's say I'm going into aspect of corporate governance. So I have to make sure that this shareholder activist in the last line of its paragraph should mention something related to corporate governance, exactly how green shareholder activism, because it changes the perspective and it has a different approach from passive investors, also helps in assisting India to frame their own corporate governance or novel model with Corporate Governance Act or Act of 2013. Once I write that, I can go into the next aspect of corporate governance, and this will be my section two. So corporate governance also will start with a background. Then you will start with another writing another word. Let's say now corporate governance, and inside that I'll write duties of directors or something relating to the subject. I'll explain that. Maybe there'll be a subheading ke liye you'll make a subheading, but remember the subheading also should match to the main heading, and don't just keep on making additional subheadings. So once you've got these two body of contents ready, you have to remember that each chapter should link to the previous chapter, and each linking of the chapter should also be related to the literature review which you're collecting. And literature review will vital help you is because we don't want to be just adding to existing literature. We want to be adding to new literature. And once we add to new literature, then only you'll be considered as a PhD or a LLM scholar. The next aspect which I'll be focusing on is ki, once I realize ki these two concepts have been mined, I'll be like, why don't I add a certain aspect of CSR? Once I aspect a certain aspect of CSR, again, I'll do the same framework. Ki exactly 5% or 500 network or 1,000 turnover. Once I realize all of these criteria are followed, I'll realize ki the main title of mine was convergence of ESG and CSR, but I've not reached it. So what will be my next part? A simulation of both of these to frame one overall report. So once I combine all of this, I'll get my this. And last aspect which will be from mentioning is conclusion. But conclusion will mention ki what you will be getting from the entire paper, how I'll be getting, how I've done my research, what was the thing I found and how I've done it. But remember one thing, what I've learned is we need to have suggested measures. So my suggested measures would be what? What am I bringing? Because you have to bring creativity in in the research. Because if you don't have creativity, you'll be seeing there's no other scope. So we started abstract, and I'll explain a bit on abstract as well. Abstract is what? It will tell us you deep delve into the subject matter. And how we start an abstract is you start an abstract by looking at your title. See, the title states convergence. So I'll write assimilating India's ESG, CSR, framing or a simulation for corporate governance. Then I'll be mentioning previous literature state. This. Previous literature state that India has their own corporate governance regime, not very effective. So for that, we want to assimilate certain aspects. There are various camps. Let's say you mentioned that. Next aspect we'll be mentioning is this doctrinal, exploratory, empirical research. Why we mention this doctrinal mostly in legal aspect. So if you are a part of legal aspects, so we'll keep it mostly to legal only. Doctrinal will be mostly what you are seeing from previous literatures, which does not include any quantitative data. It is more of qualitative data. So that is the data which is already present, which does not improve any statistics, does not improve get any data, but rather it is existing literature which is available from philosophical and explanations on the net. That is the same thing which we'll be putting in this. Exploratory is a word which tells us that we want to explore. We don't want to just be focusing on this current aspect, but how this aspect will help us in the future as well, or this area is niche, and this is how we are going to cover. Empirical research will be we are getting statistics or data or certain aspect of quantitative data, which could also include sampling. Sampling is one method. Then you could include any other aspects of data collection, data storage, and all other aspects as well. Then you mentioned a certain amount. This research paper emphasizes that. And now I'll give you example. We took shareholder activism. So you put in bracket, this paper emphasizes shareholder activism. Then you explain a bit about it. Then you go into the next aspect. You realize I've got the concept of green shareholder activism. So I'll mention green shareholder activism in this paper as well. Then I will explain in a structured manner exactly what I've got in this. And lastly, this paper considers a simulation of ESG, CSR to propound the theory of green shareholder activism and also to follow a certain aspect of EU taxonomy. And last conclusion, a last part of suggested measure which you're mentioning shall be from the suggested measure of the paper. Now let's discuss one aspect. So this is a research paper which you can publish by your own aspect. But now let's consider something related to symbiosis, in which we have a research proposal. We don't just have a research paper. So in that, obviously in that also abstract you have to mention in the same manner. Introduction again same, but now you have a statement of problem. Exactly what have you dwelled, or what you got from it? This paper or this paper researches or states this. So when you read the previous literature review, you'll realize that there are certain things which are missing, or something which you've already studied, which you could state that the problem of the article, like my problem of my article was we don't have an appropriate legislation, or to assist India to frame their own legislation, or make sure that your statement of problem matches the significance of problem, and this matches your research objectives, research questions. If this is followed properly, then you'll be seeing that in Symbiosis, how we have research proposal, and I think so OP Gentle and other places also, you'll be seeing that they'll have a proper framework as well. And one more aspect we cover is significance of this paper. First, your statement of problems, then significance. So significance will be what am I covering from the statement of problem and how I've been approaching this statement of problem. If I was talking about, let's say, about company law and ESG, how I've framed this or how I've reached to this certain aspect, that will be mentioned in statement of problem. Hypothesis is not to go that in depth into, but you've got null hypothesis, then you've got hypothesis 1 and 2, which will tell us key in a positive or a negative or a null way exactly how have we come to this research, or how have we reached to this certain conclusion, H0, H1 or H2. But mostly in legal research, we don't need much of hypothesis because we will not be using empirical data. Most important aspect is known as research questions and research objectives. So first we'll write the research objectives to examine. So in my case, it was to examine or to ascertain. You have to start with the word to examine, to ascertain. Why we use this is to see exactly what has already been done.
Conclude this.
Huh?
Conclude this.
Okay, yes. So I'll give a last aspect here. Again, what you're talking about the research project and research analysis. So the last aspect of research methods, also we have to see that the questions also appropriately given, and then you get a solution for the same. Okay.
So basically, I asked a very simple question: how to transition from research into writing, and you have given.
You asked you asked that question, but also you are told how to explain that in a systematic manner. But yeah, what most of us suffer is that in writing we don't go much into depth. In legal research, we have to mention citations. Writing is more of a creative manner. Legal research is more of an understanding which you have to do.
So just I want to add my point of view here. So basically, when
Yes, surely.
we talk about transitioning, so I feel that there is no certain thing called transitioning when it comes to research into writing, right? You do it simultaneously, in my opinion. Like what I do, I usually, for example, let's say I have certain thing in my mind, right? I will research at the same time I will write as well, so that I don't need to like look back into what I have researched, and I don't need to I don't need a bulky research. I need research in small parts, small components, and then at the same time, if I find something useful, I can just in a separate folder or separate file, I can just keep adding on that thing, and and also one more aspect, citation as well. We can do simultaneously. Like we don't need to do everything at one place, or and then coming back again and again and looking for it, right? So what we can do is that we need to like break research into small components, and then we need to go ahead with it, and this makes our process as a researcher easier. So what Sahil does is exactly the same, I guess, right? Or
Yeah.
different?
No, that is exactly the same we do. And also, like, we'll explain the last part of citation. As you mentioned, that is a good thing. That is one part I missed on. So citation will tell us where we've got the source and exactly how we have got it. And now we have to, mostly in Symbiosis, we use Blue Book citation, 21st edition. You got Ascola, you got APA. And in research papers, when you're writing a research paper, as I initially mentioned, mostly we use APA citation. So now to get this aspect, there's one thing we need to focus on for the last part of the citation and last part of this session itself, that we can use tools like Zotero, in which we in which we download the extension Zotero Connect on the computer, and in Word itself, when you see a file which is a citation, you go onto the site, you put the URL in a Zotero database, and automatically you can put a citation. Also, if you don't have a knowledge of it, first one thing remember is don't directly use any tools or methods. Go onto the Blue Book site or download it from the NLU site as well. Key exactly what is the structure of a citation and why each citation will have its different connotation. That is the most important aspect in a legal research.
So this brings us to the last segment and last question as well. So the name of the segment is Advancing as a Researcher and Career Impact. So in what ways has legal research contributed to your overall academic and professional growth? 2 minutes, Sahil. 1 minute.
Yes. Yeah. So one of the most important aspect which we realize here, it transforms you. It changes you. There are, like, even though I'm doing corporate law, but because I have done so much legal research, I have knowledge into IT and AI as well. And also when you're giving conferences or when you're giving discussions or when you're educating or inculcating this knowledge or belief into someone else, you'll realize that because you have so much knowledge, because you've studied in various aspects of law, you're not just limited to one aspect. You will progress, and each and every time you read something, even though you don't publish it, you'll realize that you have got a new knowledge, and this existing knowledge will help us not only right now, but also later in the future, also later in the drafting, and also in the practicality aspect as well.
So you have perfectly answered all the questions. So that's, I guess, right time to wrap up the session, right? So that was incredibly insightful session. So thank you for sharing your LLM journey and breaking down the research process so clearly. So I'm sure this conversation will help many students who are either considering an LLM or looking to improve their research skills. So like if you have any questions, so drop them in the comments. We would love to address them in the like further sessions, and see you in the next session. Anything else you want to add, Sahil?
Yeah, one aspect I've realized key a literature review for a dissertation should be thematic, means it should be systemized. Literature review for a normal paper should also be in a structure manner, like how this program is full of structured everything. You cannot put something which you're mentioning below up. It should not be confusing. The main thing, it should be systematic, structured. Like, what does research mean? Systematic scientific inquiry. That's it. Thank you very much.
Any final comments?
Thank you, Harsh, for this insightful session. Looking forward to the next session as well.
Okay, so we are wrapping up, and thank you for joining.